Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the International Council of Psychologists podcast. I'm Élison Santos. I'm a member of the ICP board directors, and I'm truly honored to be here with you today. We have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Amanda Clinton, the 2024 recipient of the Francis Mullen Distinguished Contribution to International Psychology Award. This award celebrates a member of ICP who has made a long and meaningful impact through research and applied contributions in international psychology. And Dr. Clinton embodies this spirit in every way. As many of you know, she's the Senior Director of the Office of International Affairs at the American Psychological Association and the organizer of the Global Psychology Alliance, uniting psychologists from around the world to address global challenges. She has also made groundbreaking contributions in bilingual assessment, social emotional learning, and the advancement of cultural relevant psychology. And to you, to our audience, thank you for joining us. I know you will find this conversation as inspiring and thought provoking as I do. And welcome, Dr. Clinton. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's great. That's great. Well, I will start with some questions. The first question is, Dr. Clinton, what does receiving the Francis Mullen Distinguished Contribution to International Psychology Award mean to you personally and professionally?
Wow. On both personal and professional levels, I mean, it's extraordinary to be recognized by the International Council of Psychologists. I admire, I'm also involved and a member, and just a longtime fan of the work that ICP has done in relation to human rights, which I think is fundamental to everything we do in psychology. And to be recognized by, I look at ICP and its members and leadership and think, wow, someday I'd like to be, like them. So to have my work recognized by such an extraordinary organization has just been beyond words for me. Professionally, I'm particularly grateful because I think this kind of recognition optimally and ultimately helps elevate the kind of work that we're trying to do, ICP, the Global Psychology Alliance, and me as a person who has the chance to have a leadership role in this space.
That's great. Yeah. Well, could you share a little with us some of the initiatives from the office, your office at the APA, that you're particularly proud of, especially in advancing psychology on global scale?
Yeah, I entered Office of International Affairs subsequent to some extremely talented women in psychology. The office was always led by women.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I started on a strong platform. There's a saying in English that's something like, don't pretend you hit a home run when you started on third base. So I want to be honest, like there were people up to bat
Right.
a long time before I was. And what happened then when I came into the Office of International Affairs was that structure allowed me to create a connection space between, it's almost like I was able to put the roof on the house or something. So there was there, and it's been such an extraordinary, I just like gift to realize that the more we can help psychologists help each other, the more we can learn from one another, share resources that truly, whether I'm an undergraduate psychology student in, Pakistan, or I'm an established uh, old psychologist in the United States, that our challenges are similar. Our aims are very much shared, and there's so much need that connecting professionals in the field early career psychologists and those who are just starting out and studying psychology is an extraordinary opportunity. And that's basically what I've focused on. I think fundamentally, since I came into OIA and part of GPA is where is a space for everybody in psychology who has an interest in humanity, the world and its humans. And then, of course, there are more specific divisions, organizations,
Mhm.
areas of study. But if we're just talking psychology, capital P, how can we come together and then find the additional places, spaces, and actions that help us feel, I guess, I speak Spanish, not Portuguese, but in Spanish they would say realizada como persona, like fulfilled like a person, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in Portuguese would be the same, realizada,
Okay,
realizada.
realizada.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And well, I'd like to ask you two questions. One, maybe especially for our audience to understand better the role of the Global Psychology Alliance, if you can share a little bit about its mission and how it was founded, and also how did you come up here? I mean, maybe personally, how did you start thinking about working with international psychology? Can you share a little for us, please?
I must be an incredibly lucky person because I grew up in a small town in Alaska and it was very remote and very well peaceful, but separated. And so whenever I had a chance as a kid and then as an adult to see parts of the lower 48 United States, or I honestly never had a chance to leave the United States till I was in graduate school. The world was like, wow. I say I grew up in a snow cave, and so you can imagine. I mean,
Wow.
really, it was. I just thought it was. I think it's spectacular, and all the people, and so gosh, I when I was in grad school, I decided I really wanted to learn Spanish. So I took Spanish while I did my PhD, and then I was fortunate to receive a Fulbright and focused on the study of bilingualism. But I don't think I really knew where I was going. It's like I had a sense. I don't know if this has happened to you, like, well, it'd be great to be in this sort of space, but I don't know what that looks like. But I guess, and what I always tell early career psychologists, like, it's follow your path and you'll get there. So I ended up at the University of Puerto Rico teaching for about 8 years. And thought I would stay, but did a congressional fellowship in DC and then was invited to explore this opportunity. In the meantime, though, I made a significant effort to, whenever I could, attend and participate in international conferences and meet people who were doing the kind of thing I'm doing. So that kind of the network idea, like reaching out and extending hands, certainly lots of people gave me guidance, and here I am. And it's sometimes I still pinch myself, like, is this really me, a kid from Alaska? Who did like gets to meet, people from all over the world, Brazil, you name it, every day. Yeah, and professionally, the Alliance has a stated aim of bringing psychology together to address problems that no one association, university, organization can address alone. Things like climate, things like global mental health, currently digitalization, things like structural inequities. But to do so using psychological science and creating a useful, applicable, taking some kind of action on behalf of all of us, but doing that in a contextualized way. So whenever we do a statement or a policy piece, that there's a framework
Mhm.
that all these relevant associations can adapt, translate. I mean, some of the work we've done has been adapted and translated for even indigenous languages like Quiche and Guatemala.
Mhm.
Um, And so that, when I first started thinking about how we could have more multilateral engagement in psychology, it was
Right.
very much just an organizational as I originally thought of it. And my colleague from Pakistan, actually, so thank you to her, said, as long as, these multilateral conversations only include very specific, highly defined groups, the places like Pakistan, where they were trying very hard to organize psychology, move human rights forward, move training forward, will just be behind. And so the GPA is unique, and I think contributes to all other organizations in psychology by creating a space to kind of bring everyone into the conversation as their organization or programs are growing. And they take on roles in leadership ultimately in places like ICP or IAP or their own national organizations or at their universities.
Wow. Well, it's such an amazing work and reality. And yes, I understand when you say that you feel lucky that you are involved in all of this, because I also find it very amazing when you have the opportunity to be connected with people from very different cultures and nationalities and regions of the world. That's really great. And in Global Psychology Alliance, so you have more than 80
Mhm.
partner associations, is it?
I want to say, so it started, this is very serendipitous.
Mhm.
That when I first started this position about 8 years ago, uh, that question came up like, well, we have really big, I'll use APA as an example. Doesn't matter how big or well resourced or old APA is, alone, we can't
Yeah,
have a significant impact on climate, just to pick that. Um,
right.
So how can we come together? So it started with a meeting in Lisbon, Portugal, just to have this conversation with, and I made an effort. Like I kind of, um, you can tell I grew up in the woods, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'll just call everybody. And so, but a
Yeah,
real effort because I would go to international meetings and to be honest, it was mostly US, Europe, Australia, right? It wasn't really international. And so that first just conversation between high level leaders, we had 40, but we had as many leaders from the global south as we did from the global north, which I really appreciate. Like, let's make sure all the voices that want to come to this table are at this table. From there,
right,
we ran into COVID, and just really, there was a problem we all shared that needed psychology and that we could work on together. And so more and more organizations came in, and we grew and really kind of developed a mission and way of working. We focus on horizontal leadership. So I consider myself kind of, for lack of a better word, the secretary, the admin, schedule meetings, try to write things up. But our working groups are all led by other people. This is not owned by anyone. It's it is about service to the profession, and now there's 80 university programs are involved, a couple of nonprofit organizations, national, regional, and international psychology associations, because I think there was a need for a psychology network. And so there was energy behind it.
right, right. Well, do you think that the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that you're working or addressing in the GPA is uh, the climate change, the global mental health, equity. What do you think is one of the biggest topics?
What do you think the biggest topic is for psychology?
Yeah.
What do you think? And what would you say the biggest
Well,
topic is for psychology?
maybe thinking now, I would say that the mental health would be the first, because through that, people would be able to understand better the environment, right? The climate change, for example, and equity and other topics. But yeah, I don't know if they can be separated, right? I think they are all together. I don't know. What
I
is
mean, I think you're right. We've been running into this. So at the first summit, we focused on climate because there was agreement, this is the critical issue, and we were aligning with sustainable development goals, which uh,
right?
however, the overarching concept was how do we work together, right, on these big issues? And so at our next meeting, well, throughout COVID, then global mental health became a challenge. And to your point, Ellison, this is
Mhm.
exactly where we are. So we've defined three sustainable, three plus sustainable development goals.
Mhm.
At 13, climate, 3, health, which includes mental health, so global mental health. Um, Equity is 10, right? And social determinants, 16 together, but as a framework, because
Right.
these are also integrated. And then at our most recent summit in Jamaica, um, there's a lot of conversation about digitalization. So, and that impacts each of these and everything we do in psychology. So I see it kind of like you do, like maybe a
Yeah.
cube. There are lots of ways in which layers intersect, and we try to frame. But are we, so we have those four working groups right now till our next summit in October 2026. And they also have like an integrated leadership meeting to see where we bring it all together. Because, right, climate affects mental health affects the ability to work, and equity, of course, some of the things I've seen. Suggests if gender equity occurred, then that would actually address the most significant inequity. And most of the economic and educational issues would be largely, so we'd have a global population that's ready to participate in the issue related to climate and digitalization, so on and so forth. So, yeah, the one comes with the other three. Uh, that is how we focus in small groups, and then we try to knit it together.
Right. Yeah. Well, it sounds very promising, and I can see that you and everyone else there is working a lot with that. And yeah, and I'm glad that we have that in the world, right? We have an alliance that is doing that, and that's great. That's great. Uh, well, one of the things that you've done as well during your AASAPA Congressional Fellowship
Mhm.
was to help draft the Mental Health Reform Act here in the United States, right? Yeah. What insights did that policy experience bring to your role in international psychology?
Oh, wow. It was phenomenal. I recommend it to everybody. So that it taught me a lot about leadership, about listening, about compromise, although the US Congress doesn't and hasn't for a long time had a reputation for listening to one another. I can say I worked for Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, and he made a point, and I just really of I tended to summarize it like you make your enemy your friend, at least for a conversation, right? That you're, if we want to end that, one step forward, or wait, two steps forward, one step back, was part of the process that you focus on this longer, bigger goal. It definitely taught me how hard it is to come to agreement.
Right.
Our Mental Health Reform Act ultimately passed as part of 21st Century Cures. So this was you know, um, I was in a Democratic office and it was a Republican majority in the Senate. And so we had differences of opinion on like funding and priorities. And certainly, the kinds of funding we were seeking on from my office didn't come through, but it
Mhm.
did create some really significant positive change and got into public awareness some new ideas, even if they were in Congress, they call it as such sums, which means there's no money. So it's gonna be really hard to make it happen. And um,
Mhm.
it's a long game. I mean, when I think about ICP and human rights, this is like you get up in the morning knowing you're part of, and I kind of came in the middle of OIA and GPA sorts of things. Like, uh,
Yeah.
this is something beyond me to stay focused on that. And also, I would say using science. I was really impressed with how much um, I was asked to rely on state-of-the-art science in writing the ledge language for our mental health care bill. And that is absolutely critical. Finally, I would say listening to everybody, families, other leaders, colleagues. The world's so complex.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
life-changing. I feel like I grew up a lot in my time in as an aide in Congress and a fellow because um, it asks a lot of you, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, as you say. So it's so complex, it's so huge. There are so many people, so many different thoughts and perspectives about human reality, and we can't separate ourselves from other people, and as we can't separate ourselves as psychologists and this international community of psychology where you were so involved, as we are here in the ICP as well. Uh, we can't separate this reality from politics, for example, right? I think it's fantastic fantastic the experience that you had connecting these two words as well, right?
Yeah. It
As
really,
human
and to
beings.
your point, in some ways, I think um, being on different sides of the aisle, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Congress is requires the kind of approach we talk about a lot in global psychology, like listen and learn. And it's somewhere you have something in common, a starting point
Yeah.
with a person who may not seem like you have anything in common at all. I was on the Senate train once with a senator from a very different perspective than, my boss. And we had a brilliant conversation. It was just fun and polite and interesting. And it was a reminder that, our stereotypes and pre-impressions, anywhere, we should step back and, be
Yeah.
open-minded. And yeah, it's a long game, right? It's complicated, but it's worthwhile. I think I learned about not giving up.
Yeah, and somebody has to do that, and you are doing that, and that is so great, and that's why you received this award, for example, right, and other things and other awards that you've received in your life. That's so great. Well, I saw that your writing, for example, the one called "Time to Change the World." You urge psychologists to contribute meaningfully to global challenges. Uh, what motivated you to give that message, and how do you see psychology's role evolving in advancing global collaboration today?
Yeah, I think, my experience has taught me that we should take our own advice. Where, we talk a lot about self-reflection, which is very different from self-absorption. And that I also, so yeah, pay attention to where you kind of get, pushback. Those are probably the best best lessons. But the other thing is valuing psychology in an active way. I it, we talk a lot about how we aren't invited, right? Congress or the United Nations or Google isn't calling us up and asking us for our opinion, but we have a lot to contribute. And so my feeling is let's spend our time proactively. Show up, knock on that door. If they don't answer, show up again, and help people understand where psychology can help them and all of its potential applications. And so that the experience, like we're really good at clinical stuff in general. I think if you gave a talk on, a particular clinical approach, the room would be full. If you gave a talk on climate, the room would be not so full. And I think that's because we are having a hard time envisioning ourselves in spaces outside of kind of the standard role of what a psychologist does. And so I'd like everyone, if even if someone works full-time in clinical practice, they certainly have some kind of experience through their clients. They can connect with climate or global mental health issues, or so let's kind of step away from our own comfort zone. We recommend that with certain frequency.
Yeah.
But if we want global change, there are many layers of discomfort. Like I said, you don't know where to start. You don't know people or organizations or culture or language but but you can, there's always a way. There's always a way forward, and we could stop worrying so much about not being included and finding a way to set a table that's inclusive.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I totally agree. I work mostly as a clinical psychologist, and I've been doing that for almost 20 years now. And working in Brazil and also here in Washington, D.C., I see different words and I can feel, and I remember many times seeing each one of my clients, for example, in time of elections, when the social environment is so heated and you can see that how it affects everyone, right? And they bring that to their therapy and because we can't be separated from this reality, right? And you were totally right. And I think that the clinical psychologists have a lot to contribute in to that international dialogue as well, right? And yeah, I totally agree with you that.
That makes me so. Last year, the Global Alliance wrote a shared document statement on democracy and its impact on health and well-being. This was actually because a couple of our participating associations had been under a lot of pressure from their respective governments to close their doors because of restrictions on free speech and those kinds of things. What was I love that point. Like, you actually know, you're seeing day to day the stress that people are under when they feel fearful or they can't make, choices or speak their and yeah, so capturing that is a global challenge. It comes and goes in degrees, but for all of us,
Yes.
and the fact that you know what that looks like in a very human, I think GPA mostly we took a academic approach to it, is an exceptional contribution. And that's kind of the idea of GPA. Everybody can make us stronger with their experience and voice.
That's great. Well, uh, going to the end of our interview here, what advice would you offer to early career psychologists who aspire to make an international impact?
You ask really good questions. By the way, they're not easy. I would say reach out and keep reaching out. The Global Alliance actually has an early career grad student learning leadership institute to bring young psychologists into the broader alliance. But you don't have, I was in Chile a year or so ago, and an undergraduate asked to meet with me. And I mean, of course, I'm like, I love to. And the faculty was shocked that I would sit down and talk with, an undergraduate student who just I kind of feel like, well, for one, we're all in this together, and for two, I was that kid, right? Once upon a time, and I really would have loved to have advice and support. And so if you don't get, it's almost like being in Congress. If you get no, then you just kind of say, all right, I'll find another path. I'm gonna, I would say to them, be like, I would say my hero is the Colorado River, right? In the Grand Canyon. Like sometimes there's drought, sometimes there are landslides, sometimes there's storms and floods. One way or the other, the river keeps going. keeps going to the sea. And so where you bump into an obstacle, give it a minute, understand that it'll rain again or dry out a little, and you'll be able to get over that boulder or that tree, and uh, find find people. There are lots of us, right? I think
Yeah.
ICP is an example, lots of us APA and other organizations who want to lift you up in your journey.
That's so great. Yeah. Well, and this last question, I think you already answered it with your life, your experience growing up in Alaska and becoming this leader in international psychology. And but maybe you could express some of that in some words, if you may. How do we cultivate global leadership in psychology while maintaining cultural humility and relevance?
I would say that transparency, honesty, and understanding good intentions. One thing that we do in the Global Alliance that is hard, but I appreciate, is we understand we're a team. And if you need to tell me a hard truth, like Amanda, whatever that comment you made was really missed the mark and insensitive, that I prefer that to a soft lie, as I would, that we all understand. And so to kind of take this approach as you're studying, if you're a training psychologist, when you're working, that like honest feedback is a gift and an opportunity, and that will be better global psychologists will be able to understand what humility really looks like, or good listening, or good, or if, genuine curiosity, if we can stop and hear what other people are saying. I don't know if you've seen videos of kids who get cochlear implants. So they haven't heard their entire lives. Then they're 5 years old, they get a cochlear implant and they hear
It's
their
so
mom's.
amazing.
Right? And so I'm like, we should, if I talk to you, if I go to Nicaragua, if I go to Tanzania, like be able to respond with that kind of like, this is like I'm really hearing this sort of voice for the first time as often as we can.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's amazing. And I think it's a very wonderful analogy. Well, Dr. Clinton, thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your journey with us today. Your leadership and vision, whether through scholarship, global advocacy, or international collaboration, remind us of the powerful role psychology can play in making the world more connected, inclusive, and humane. So, to those watching and listening, we hope this conversation has given you not only a glimpse into Dr. Clinton's extraordinary contributions, but also a renewed sense of how each of us can play a part in advancing psychology across borders. The work of the ICP and colleagues like Dr. Clinton shows us that psychology is not limited by geography. It is truly a global endeavor. So, congratulations again, Dr. Clinton, on receiving the 2024 Francis Mullen Award. And to our audience, thank you for being with us. Stay connected with ICP, continue these conversations, and let's keep working together to make a difference worldwide. Until next time, take care and keep building bridges, bridges through psychology. Thank you, Dr. Clinton.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. Thank you.